Mermaids, aliens, or maybe just bad weather? What's the mystery behind the people who claimed Mount Nyangani to adore its beauty only to vanish without a trace for eternity? Welcome to Gemini Blessed TV, and in this video we're going to be exploring the chilling mysteries behind Mount Nyangani. If you're new to the channel, we'll drop new exciting content every week, so don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more exciting content. Mount Nyangani, formerly known as Mount Nyangani, stands tall as Zimbabwe's highest mountain at 2,592 meters. Located within Nyanga National Park in Nyanga district, about 68 miles from Mutare, the mountain is surrounded by scenic forests that draw visitors from far and wide. Nyanga has been inhabited by humans for centuries, with ancient stone forts, terraces, and pathways still visible today. Back in 1896, even Cecil John Rhodes, infamous for his role in the colonization of Southern Africa, couldn't resist its charm after a visit and claimed a piece of the land for himself. Climbing Mount Nyangani isn't too hard, it takes less than 2 hours. The mountain's beauty can lure any observer, but apart from its distinction, it also has other claims to fame. Its dark history is equally compelling, making you think twice before heading up. For generations, Mount Nyangani has earned a sinister reputation as the mountain that swallows people. And this isn't just folklore. Numerous disappearances have been reported, with victims seemingly vanishing into thin air. The earliest disappearance to be recorded in modern history was the case of the Masaya girls in 1981. The Masaya family with their children were visiting Nyanga over the Christmas holidays. Teacher Endepi Masaya, the father, was a lecturer in economics at the University of Zimbabwe at the time and had returned to the area where he grew up, bringing his wife and their 4 daughters. On the afternoon of December 29th, Mrs. Masaya drove her daughters to Mount Nyangani. She parked at the base, letting the girls climb up while she waited in the car. She warned them to stick to the paths and return before the mist began to form at the top. Tsara 14 and Tambu 9 led the way, followed by Ruwa 17 and Tsitsi 11. Despite light rain, visibility was clear. Tsitsi, who had cut her foot earlier, removed her shoes but kept going. When Tambu and Tsara reached the top, they realized it was getting dark and shouted for the others to hurry. Rua's voice echoed back, "We're coming." Those were the last words they ever heard from Rua and Tsitsi. The older sisters waited but grew concerned when their siblings didn't appear. They descended to their mother, and as night fell, worry turned to panic. Mrs. Masaya honked the horn and flashed the lights, but there was no response. They rushed to the National Park's office and an intense search began. Wardens, scouts, police, and even the military combed the area, with helicopters joining the search. The only evidence found at that time was Tsitsi's shoes, one of them blood-stained inside where she had cut her foot. The 2 older girls had been attending Roosevelt Girls High School in Harare, and Sue Fergus, one of the teachers there, together with 2 associates, set up a reward fund for the missing girls. The scheme was approved by Dr. Herbert Ushewokunze, Minister of Home Affairs at the time, and a sum of 3,000 Zimbabwean dollars was raised. News of the disappearance spread and efforts to find the girls intensified. According to a June 1982 article in the Herald, 2,000 posters offering a reward of 2,000 Zimbabwean dollars were distributed by the police in 3 different languages, appealing for any information that could lead to the missing sisters. Unfortunately, these efforts yielded no results. About 18 months after the girls disappeared, two young expatriate teachers from Cranbourne High School in Harare decided to climb Mount Nyangani and discovered a child's t-shirt as though left to dry on a bush near a sacred pool fed by the Gayford River. It was taken to the police and Mrs. Masaya later identified it as Tsitsi's t-shirt. When a subsequent grid search of the area was done shoulder to shoulder, the African members of the national parks seemed uncomfortable in that place and were only too eager to leave when the search was completed, as the local people believed the place to be the home of Nzuzu, a half-man, half-fish deity responsible for the disappearances. Despite the teachers' willingness to dive in and search the pool, locals begged them not to do this. It was a sacred pool inhabited by Nzuzu. It would return the children if the parents did not weep for them and if they sacrificed a black goat. It is believed that seeking ancestral spiritual help from elders could potentially lead to the return of those who have vanished under mysterious circumstances on the mountain. Sadly, despite efforts and local beliefs, the girls were never found, and their disappearance remains one of Mount Nyangani's most chilling mysteries. In the early 1980s, a deputy minister in the Zimbabwean government recorded a chilling personal experience involving Mount Nyangani. One Saturday, he and two companions decided to climb the mountain and enjoy a picnic. After eating, they began feeling unusually drowsy, slipping into a strange state of chidzimira, a Shona term often associated with confusion or a trance-like condition. They decided to rest for a bit before heading back down. When they woke up, the sun was setting and they hurried to descend the mountain. Below, they noticed national parks and wildlife officials combing the area as if searching for something. They shouted and waved, but it seemed the search team didn't see or hear them. Finally, upon reaching the group, they were told something shocking. They'd been reported missing for over 2.5 days. The deputy minister was stunned. For him and his companions, only hours seemed to have passed and none of them felt hungry or dehydrated. According to local accounts, traditional healers had intervened during the search. Cultural rites were performed to appease the spirits believed to guide the mystical mountain, which many credit for their eventual safe return. In another mysterious case from 1983, Mr. Chingosho, district assistant for the Nyanga area, was directly involved in the search for a resettlement officer. The officer, who was the son of a prominent army official, disappeared on Mount Nyangani and was missing for over 48 hours. The Changwena tribe's people performed a special ritual believed to appease the spirits of the mountain, and shortly afterwards, the missing man walked down the mountain as if nothing had happened. When questioned, he believed he had only fallen asleep for a short time and had no recollection of the missing time or any unusual events. On November 22, 1984, tragedy struck again when Robert Arkest, a 13-year-old schoolboy, disappeared on the mountain. Robert was part of a group of 20 grade 7 pupils from Banget Junior High School on a week-long trip to Nyanga under the supervision of their teacher, Peter Hastings, and his wife. Known to be a quiet and somewhat misfit child, Robert stood out as being on the younger side of the class. On the way down, Robert's friend Mutiti approached Peter Hastings, who was near the back with the slower pupils, and said, "Sir, Robert wants to pee." Peter allowed Robert to go behind the rocks, expecting him to return shortly, but after a minute or two, Robert didn't come back. Hastings searched the area but found no trace of him. Mutiti admitted that Robert had gone off on another path, falsely claiming he knew it well, despite never having visited Mount Nyangani before. After 2 hours of searching with the children, Asing contacted the National Parks authorities. That night, with fires lit across the mountain, under the misty rain, wardens and search teams called Robert's name repeatedly to no avail. By the next day, a full-scale operation called Operation Search was launched. Directed with military precision by an ex-combatant from Banget, the search involved 150 men and women equipped with tents and provisions. They searched every path, rock and cranny on the mountain, but it was as if Robert had been swallowed by the mountain itself. Unfortunately, Robert was never found. Heartbreakingly, according to some reports, Peter Asing was so devastated by the loss of a child under his care that he took his own life the following year. For years, Mount Nyangani's reputation as a sinister and mysterious place lingered. Following the disappearance of Robert Arcust in 1984, the mountain remained isolated as fear kept people away. No new disappearances were reported for years. However, the mountain's enigmatic presence returned to the spotlight in the 1990s when Zulu traditional healer and writer Kredo Muta shared his pre-colonial encounter in an interview. In 1959 in then Rhodesia, Muta was sent by his teacher Mrs. Moyo and Ndebele healer to gather a special herb in Mount Nyangani for a sick initiate. As he began digging for the herb, he noticed the temperature around him dropping sharply despite the hot African day. Suddenly, a bright blue mist swirled around him, and before he realized it, he found himself in a strange place which he described as a tunnel with silver-grey metal, which he compared to a mine he had worked in before. Muta woke to find himself lying on a large heavy bench or table. His trousers and boots were missing. Dull grey creatures appeared, and though terrified, Muta found himself paralyzed, unable to move. One creature placed its hand over his mouth, silencing him, and then another touched his forehead. Muta felt a sharp agonizing pain in his left thigh, which was soon replaced by strange visions of half-destroyed cities with their buildings' tops blown away. He claimed that one of the creatures, a female, had sexual intimacy with him against his will. Muta described being taken to other rooms where he saw incomprehensible things. He noted other human beings lying on similar tables, including a white man who smelled of fear, sweat, and urine. The two briefly exchanged glances before Muta found himself back in the bush, his trousers still missing, and experiencing severe pain in his left thigh and private parts. Local villagers found Muta and brought him back to Mrs. Moyo's village. Surprisingly, neither Mrs. Moyo nor the villagers were shocked by his account. They remarked that he was likely to return alive, as others who had experienced similar events had vanished forever. In 1960, while in Joburg, a white man stopped Muta, claiming they had met before. Upon remembering, Muta told him, "I saw you in Rhodesia underground." The man, who was visibly disturbed, turned away and left without another word. According to Muta, Africans had interacted with these extraterrestrial beings for thousands of years, interpreting them as creatures of the night like tokoloshis, though their interpretation differed significantly from Western perspectives. Muta's encounters gained international recognition. In his 1999 book Passport to the Cosmos, Human Transformation and Alien Encounters, Harvard psychiatrist and Pulitzer Prize-winning author John Mack devoted a chapter to Muta's experiences.
We're talking today with Harvard University psychiatrist John Mack, who studied the cases of about 100 people, at least, who claim that they've been abducted by aliens.
The chapter highlighted Muta's encounters with extraterrestrial beings and their connection to African cultural interpretations, showcasing a unique perspective on alien encounters. As confirmation of his global recognition as an authority on aliens from other worlds, Kredo Muta was invited to deliver a keynote address at an international conference on extraterrestrial intelligence in Australia during March 2001. In fact, one of the beings he described, known as the Chitauri, later found its way into popular culture, being reimagined and featured prominently in the Marvel universe as the Chitauri, a race of alien invaders. Although no new disappearances were reported in the 1990s, Mount Nyangani once again found itself at the heart of mysterious phenomena. This time declassified CIA documents surfaced, potentially shedding light on the disappearances, or perhaps deepening the mystery. In 1972, the CIA-funded research into remote viewing began at the Stanford Research Institute led by Hal Puthoff. Interestingly, 8 years before the first recorded disappearance of the Messiah sisters, Pat Price, a prominent remote viewer and former police officer from California, claimed in 1973 that extraterrestrials had established 4 underground bases beneath mountains on Earth, which he claimed to have identified. The specific locations of these mountains included Mount Hayes in Alaska, Mount Perdido in Spain, Mount Zill in Australia, and none other than Mount Nyangani in Zimbabwe. Price described these bases as being heavily shielded from discovery, which were life supportive in their purpose and equipped with advanced technology capable of influencing human thought through thought transfer. It's worth noting that Pat Price, who died under mysterious circumstances 2 years later, had a proven track record in remote viewing. He is best remembered for his sketches of cranes and gantries that aligned with CIA intelligence photographs. Former CIA Director Stansfield Turner once described Price as a man who could see what was going on anywhere in the world through his psychic powers, and at the time of his death, the CIA took his claims seriously. Further research into remote viewing after Price's death led to the establishment of the Stargate project in 1977, a $20 million research program sponsored by the US government to investigate the potential for psychic phenomena in military and domestic intelligence applications, primarily remote viewing. Over time, remote viewers in Project 8200, a secret operation under Stargate, were given the task of investigating the presence of bases alleged by Pat Price, confirming the presence of the bases, and also reporting that there were more of these bases, some on the seabed. The data suggested that the bases were not always occupied and appeared to communicate with an ancient object in deep space, yet equipped with new technology. The Stargate project was terminated in 1995, with the CIA concluding it did not substantially contribute to intelligence operations. In 2024, Skip Atwater's Project 8200 book brought fresh attention to this mystery with the publication of 17 pages from Pat Price's original file. For years, no new mysteries were reported from Mount Nyangani, and the disappearances gradually slipped into the realm of myth. Interestingly, when mysterious news related to Mount Nyangani resurfaced, it was once again tied to a connection with the government, but this time the Zimbabwean government. In 2012, Comrade Sam Sipepangomo, Zimbabwe's then Minister of Water Resources and a devout Christian, revealed to the Senate that traditional rites had been performed to appease mermaids angered by the desecration of their river at Osborne Dam in Manicaland. The minister cited several unexplained incidences at the dam site, including freak construction accidents, persistent equipment malfunctions, and strange weather phenomena. Some workers went missing without a trace, and terrified construction crews refused to return to work, claiming to have seen the creatures. The call for traditional rites to appease the mermaids was supported by Comrade Ignatius Chombo, then Minister of Local Government, Rural and Urban Development. Foreign workers hired for the project reportedly encountered similar problems and also refused to resume work until rituals were performed. This is especially intriguing as the same deity believed to be responsible for the serial disappearances at Mount Nyangani, just 60 miles away, was now the subject of a government appeasement effort to restore peace. From an African perspective, the events point to the Njuzu, a water spirit revered in the Zimbabwean folklore. However, Western interpretations, particularly in light of CIA documents linking Mount Nyangani to extraterrestrial activity, raise a startling question. Could the Zimbabwean government have brokered a deal with extraterrestrial beings to halt human abductions? A fascinating theory suggests that the Njuzu itself may actually be an extraterrestrial being. Nearly 3,000 miles away in Western Africa lies the Dogon tribe, a group unrelated to Zimbabwe's Shona people but sharing remarkable cultural similarities such as ceremonial mask dances. Believed to have originated from Egypt, the Dogon are famous for their advanced knowledge of the Sirius star system, including Sirius B, a white dwarf star invisible to the naked eye and only confirmed by modern telescopes in 1970. The astronomical knowledge passed down by elder priests has led many to speculate about ancient contact with advanced civilizations or extraterrestrial beings. The Dogon attribute their knowledge to beings known as the Nomo, amphibious half-human, half-fish entities said to hail from the Sirius star system. Known as the masters of the water or teachers, the Nomo shared wisdom on astronomy, agriculture, and other sciences with the Dogon. Strikingly, the Nomo bear a strong resemblance to the Njuzu of Zimbabwean folklore, who are said to reside in water and train traditional healers known as Nganga. The Njuzu are deeply rooted in Zimbabwe's cultural heritage and are believed to have imparted knowledge of traditional medicine to humans a long time ago. Stories of individuals abducted by the Njuzu only to return years later as healers are a common phenomenon in Zimbabwe. These stories even occasionally make headlines, with some individuals reportedly missing for as long as 46 years. It is said that if someone is kidnapped by the Njuzu, their family must not cry or the spirit will kill the abductee. Historically, the Manyika people revered Mount Nyangani as a sacred highland, home to the Njuzu and responsible for the disappearances. According to folklore, Chief Nyanga, the mountain's namesake, formed a bond with Chirikutsi, a mermaid living at Pungwe Falls. This relationship involved sacred rituals at an altar along the Nyamombe River, where they would meet the mermaid as well as communicate with their spirit mediums. At one point, the mermaid is said to have come out of the water and took Nyanga's family with it to live into the waters, leaving a few behind. Legends warn visitors not to approach certain sacred areas on the mountain. Those who ignore this warning risk becoming lost forever, wandering aimlessly until the spirits are appeased. Strangely, a thick mist frequently occurs on the mountain, which science attributes to weather conditions, but local legends regard as a gateway to the spirit world, and the trailhead sign suggests this belief to be respected. Even today, visitors are urged to seek permission from local elders before venturing into this enigmatic and sacred mountain. The rituals performed at Osborne Dam seemed to appease the spirits, and the dam was successfully completed. However, less than 2 years later, and 40 years after the last reported disappearance, Mount Nyangani made headlines again when another mysterious vanishing occurred. On Saturday, January 4, 2014, Zade Dada, a 31-year-old Zimbabwean of Indian descent, embarked on a hike up Mount Nyangani with his wife and another couple. Midway through the climb, his companions grew tired and decided to rest. Zade, eager to explore more of the mountain's beauty, continued the hike alone. That was the last time anyone saw him. When hours passed without Zade's return, his wife and friends searched the area but found no trace of him. Authorities were alerted and a massive search effort began. Over 60 individuals, including members of the Zimbabwe National Army, the Air Force of Zimbabwe, the Zimbabwe Republic Police, and park rangers joined the search alongside family, friends, and volunteers. Advanced technology and rescue experts from South Africa were also brought in, yet no evidence of Zade's whereabouts was found. Every possible route up the mountain was painstakingly searched to no avail, and the story made national news in Zimbabwe at the time. Helicopters scoured the area, but heavy winds disrupted their efforts. After covering approximately 80% of the mountain's terrain, searchers were left baffled as no belongings or remains were discovered, not even a shoe or scrap of clothing. As hope decreased, family and friends finally turned to traditional healers who performed ceremonies to appease the mountain's spirits. Some claimed that modern search methods, including helicopters, had angered the ancestral spirits protecting the mountain. Despite their efforts, Zade remained missing. Weeks turned into months, and the search was eventually abandoned. According to Nando, another spirit medium, Zade and others who disappeared were alive within the mountain, now living as its grandchildren. The winds that forced the helicopter to land during the search were a sign from the spirits pointing to the location of a descendant who could lead the rise to retrieve Zade. Unfortunately, the search team ignored these spiritual warnings. Around 7 months after Zade Dada's disappearance, another tourist, Thomas Gayford, narrowly escaped Mount Nyangani's grasp and was one of the lucky ones who lived to tell the tale. Gayford, a 20-year-old British human science student at Oxford University, traveled to Zimbabwe after winning the prestigious Wallace Watson Award, which funds challenging explorations to remote areas for study. Drawn by the mountain's captivating beauty, Gayford set off on a hike to its summit despite locals warning him about Zade Dada's recent disappearance and the mountain's eerie reputation. At around 3 p.m., Gayford claimed a sudden and unusually thick fog rolled down from the mountain, fully engulfing him. Disoriented and lost, Gayford decided to pitch his tent and wait out the bizarre weather. Heavy rains followed him, and during the night, he claimed to have been circled by mysterious creatures with glowing red eyes that appeared to be observing him. Remembering the locals' advice to respect the mountain and its sacred nature, Gayford refrained from disturbing the wildlife he encountered, a decision he credited with saving his life in news interviews. After a tense, rain-soaked night lasting 10 hours, the fog miraculously cleared in the morning, allowing Gayford to find his way back down safely. That evening, he attended a concert by Zimbabwean music legend Oliver Mtukudzi, reflecting on his ordeal. Initially skeptical about the supernatural legends surrounding Mount Nyangani, as well as the warnings that local and tribal elders had given him, Gayford admitted the experience profoundly altered his perspective. Since 2014, it is unlikely there will be any tourist disappearances because the Park Service officially started requiring all hikers to be accompanied by a licensed park guide when hiking up Mount Nyangani. Despite these enforcements and cautionary measures, Mount Nyangani continued to claim lives, with the most recent publicized case occurring in 2020. In April of that year, 8-year-old twin boys Tanatswa and Tendai tragically lost their lives while attempting to recover stray cattle with their father on the mountain. During their trip, a sudden heavy downpour separated the family. The twins, along with their father and nephew, lost their way and spent the night on the mountain. The following morning, their mother, Tafadzwa Chitekwa, alerted villagers that her husband and children had not returned, prompting a search party. When the search team found them, all four were unconscious and were immediately taken to Nyanga District Hospital. Tanatswa was pronounced dead on arrival, and Tendai passed away later the same day. At the time, Zimpak's spokesperson Tinashe Farao confirmed the incident, attributing the tragedy to adverse weather conditions. What is going on at the seemingly cursed Mount Nyangani depends largely on who you ask. Tribal leaders have long warned that it is absolutely necessary to follow the rules of the mountain and to not anger the many roaming spirits that eternally guard it. They also claim that the only possibility of bringing the lost people back is through intense rituals to ask these spirits for forgiveness. Some suggest that perhaps a more rational explanation is that the very terrain invites disappearances. This is a place of sharp, spectacular weather changes and unusually thick mist buildup, which can endanger and disorient hikers. These factors can spell trouble for even the most experienced hiker, and the slightest mishap can leave anyone stranded or even injured in foggy conditions, unable to find their way, or even worse, plummeting down a steep cliff to their death. But that doesn't explain why the several bodies were never found after extensive searches by professional search parties. The church has its own perspective on the matter. According to an article by the Manica Post, Pastor Nyakatawa of the End Time Message believes the mystery is linked to spirits that were cast down from heaven. According to Revelations 12 verse 7, God fought with Satan and his angels, and upon being defeated they were cast down on earth. Some fell in the deep sea, high mountains, and thick bushes. They've got power, and we should not despise them or underestimate their power. Such mystery is real because Satan wants to cause misery to people. They are fallen angels. It needs God's revelation to understand these issues, and that is why even the traditionalists cannot fully explain the mystery, he said. Another believer who spoke on condition of anonymity had this to say: people should simply respect and follow what they are taught to do when they are in the so-called sacred places. Even in the Bible, there were some sacred places like Bethel and the place where Moses would meet God in the wilderness. The results of going against such orders are far-reaching, he said. As for the events surrounding Mount Nyangani, will they ever come to an end? Well, only time will tell. But what happened to those who climbed the mountain and never returned? Were they victims of the Njuzu spirits, Or were extraterrestrial forces identified in CIA research documents from the 1970s responsible for abductions, such as the case involving Kredo Muta in 1959? Or were they simply victims of natural disasters? Nowadays, anyone wishing to explore Mount Nyangani must pay a fee to be accompanied by an experienced guide. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more content.